Okay, everyone. I know I have been gone for like 2 months, but trust me when I say this summer has been going by so slow and I haven't had any motivation. But anyways, let's cut the chit-chat about sad stuff because I don't think anyone cares. Instead, we're going to be adventuring inside of Reddit to hear stories.
God is watching everything you do, and he thinks you're a nasty, naughty, nympho slut.
You sinful, filthy whore, you're going to hell! Your flesh will burn, your bones will turn, your soul will be torn asunder! You wretched heathen heretic, burn in hell!
For eternity!
Look, guys, I swear this will be a fun video, trust me. Now you guys might be wondering, why are you making a video about Dungeons and Dragons? Well, 1, I can do whatever I want. 2, because I thought it's a funny idea. And 3, to see if I should really get myself into it. Yeah, so I'm sure you all will love this one. The stories we'll be reading will come from this prompt. What are some of your worst player horror stories? And spoiler alert, I am terrified as hell reading these. But it's all okay because we are in this together. So let's begin with the stories. This was actually from a Savage Worlds campaign, but the story is system agnostic. I got invited to a group made up of some friends and some others I didn't know. The DM led by setting up the premise of the game, a search for a long-lost utopian city in an otherwise post-apocalyptic world of magic and monsters. We made our characters. Then the DM pulled us each aside to tell us what our characters knew going in. My character, an analytical nerd with an interest in the past era, was said to know the most about where the city is located, which was just a general west of here somewhere. Our characters each got a separate intro, but we quickly wound up in the same bar. Striking up a conversation about the lost city, the party slowly gathers to compare notes. The last to arrive at the table is a mysterious, shadowy figure in a trench coat. He says, "You're going to Jericho." He slaps a piece of paper down on the table. "Well, I've got a map." Was this shadowy figure perhaps playing this as of a game? I look to the DM, who seems about as confused as I am. So my character looks at the map and says, "It's fake." He insists that it isn't. He's called the Enigma, and he knows many things. At this point, the DM speaks up. "You don't have a map. I told you what your character knows. You could have a false map. They'll roll a d20, I think, to see how good the forgery is." He gets a nat 1. It's a few lines on a cocktail napkin. The player was silent for the rest of the session after that, and didn't return.
Stop the cap! Stop the cap right now! Stop the cap!
This isn't the worst story out there by far, and if he had never roleplayed before, it might very well be an innocent mistake. However, we all still have a chuckle over the Enigma and his cocktail napkin map, and it stands as a reminder of what not to do when making a character. Now I know that you make your own original character and roleplay, but is there I don't know, limits when doing it? Like what if I wanted my own dwarf character to have the characteristics and aspects like an average gnome, but make them interesting as possible? Sounds fun, right? Okay, we're moving on now. Ran a game at a library as a teen program for several years. Now it was bad enough that the adventuring party was between 20 to 30 people at any given session, with new and missing players every single session, and the minimum age at the table was 11. But about a third of my regulars were literally just there to be jackasses. One example is Zaphod Beeblebrox, the human paladin, who streaked through Elminster's tower and promptly quit when he lost access to his Spells. The truly notable one, however, was Thimbly. Thimbly, the rogue murder hobo who desperately wanted to wear chains all over his body despite repeated warnings that this would compromise his stealth. He brought me a printout of a homebrew from Dandwiki for a prestige class into a Shinigami from the Bleach and Maid insisted he become that. He regularly threatened to attack other party members. And when we attempted to run an online game, he tried to kill people and God moded extensively to the point that we had to close the forum after only 2 days because everyone was tired of him. Honorable mention for worst player probably goes to Isethia, who was older than me. I was around 24 at the time she was playing Ayat, but less mature than the 11-years, and would regularly be so anxious over the prospect of flubbing her dice rolls that she would close her eyes, look away, and shake them in her hands for up to 2 minutes while the whole table begged her to just get on with it. Her character also fell in love with the above-mentioned Zaphod Beeblebrox after seeing him naked, which made Zaphod's 15-year player very uncomfortable. She also liked to derail the game with bizarre anti-SJW rants because she was a Hatalia fanfic writer. At least, she roleplayed consistently.
Stop. I can't take any more. I can't do this. I cannot do this any fucking more. I can't do it anymore!
First of all, a campaign with 20 to 30 people, genuinely, what did you expect to happen? Secondly, what is the point of having a bunch of jewelry if you're going on heist? Like, is that not contradicting the whole concept? And thirdly, why is this grown woman falling in love with a minor's character just because she saw the character naked? Is that not pedophilia, but in a different format? Wait a minute, does that even make any sense about her falling in love with a 15-year-old's character? Let's just move on now. Like a campaign horror story. I was brand new to DnD, but had done a series of one-shots and people were generally satisfied with the outcome, so I began doing for a small group. Now we're in a club setting, so I didn't get to choose my players. I managed to get a collection of some of the single worst players we had to offer. Our group consisted of, at the start, the guy who rolls his stats on his own and shows up with no less than 2 18s, and nothing else lower than a 14, really thought he was a god. And I just let it go at the time because I was more than ready to show him that he wasn't. Call him Derek. To complete newbies, both of whom were actually the best players at the table, and not the point of this post. One left the campaign early on, but the other stayed to the end, and that one we'll call Andy. A furry who is addicted to animals in character, left the game after session number 2. Pause the goddamn story. I beg your absolute pardon. They do what with animals? Wonder if you do what you gotta do.
私には触れないことだ。やめろと忠告したのにな。厄災が来る。厄災に正義はない。
悪との区別もない。
A habitual liar who did nothing but metagame, henceforth Barbatua, and a random guy who just showed up to the session one day because he saw a flyer in a game shop for our club. Now this guy was the worst of them all. He had a lot of strong opinions about how the game should be played and how things work. Frequently mentioned how back when he played it was just made-up stuff and killing monsters, and they didn't even have the books, and it was great. He was the kind of player who thought that D&D should never be anything more than a couple buddies sitting around a table, drinking beer, and killing goblins. Anything more than that was way over our heads. He would say anytime the party encountered something more complicated than a hack and slash. Also showed up with a level 3 character, and wouldn't play anything else when the rest of the party was level 1. We'll call him Mike. And so it began. I regret ever putting an ounce of effort into this campaign. It was going to be huge, a deep political intrigue leading into major world consequences, involving kings, cults, gods, and an eventual sequel campaign that would have an impact on the future of the world. What a fucking mistake. The first couple sessions run okay, things are relatively on target, and they have a plot thread to follow. Then they meet up with Mike, and it all goes downhill. They send a letter to a guy they're supposed to meet with, and in the interim, they want to find a notice board. In standard D&D fashion, one materializes after some brief searching, touting such grand adventures as please kill these bandits and trolls and escort my potato caravan to the next town. And just like that, they're off to find some bandits. They find the bandits eventually, and they'd been utterly slaughtered, with 2 of them left barely alive. Ignoring the stragglers' warnings to not go after the trolls because there were 12 of us and now there are much less, they behead the bandits and set off to find a bunch of trolls at level 1 because Mike insists that they can manage it. In spite of multiple successful nature checks prompting a D&D description of based on what you know about trolls, this would be a terrible idea, so now they've gotten both in-game and out-of-game warnings to not do it, and decide to anyway. Our hero Derek really wants the gold reward for those trolls, and Mike isn't telling him otherwise, even when they've both made nature rolls telling them they will die doing so. Andy follows along patiently because it's their first time really playing and they don't know what's what. Mike splits off from the party and the trolls find them. In a brief cutscene, they see a lone bandit surrounded by corpses, one of which is of a troll, be torn in half in a single swipe. This did not dissuade Derek in any way, and he attempts to behead the dead troll mid-combat. They successfully run away after some very subtle maimings to get the point across.
Are you fucking dumb? Are you fucking dumb?
And then they go back the next day. One Einstein quote later, they're running away from trolls again, and they end the day much as they started it. At an inn, nearly dying the next morning, Barbatua joins the party. And Derek has to leave the campaign due to personal reasons. They get the hint about the trolls, and at this point, I got the hint about my campaign, and informed them it would instead be a do-what-you-want open-world style, cause that's what they were doing anyway. They decide to instead visit some abandoned TM ruins, and this was instead where I focused my efforts as a DM, giving the place a history, and really making it a place they could engage with for a solid couple sessions before I threw this dumpster fire of a campaign off the bay docks, as it were. And in the ruins is where Mike shined brightest, getting upset at the slightest hint of a puzzle, and frequently and loudly encouraging other players to do objectively stupid things based on his wild assumptions of how things are supposed to work, such as I heard the rattling of chains from below us at night. This suspicious wall in an entirely different area must be a hidden door, and it must open at exactly that time I heard the chains, and that happens every night. And instead of ever looking for other options or investigating further, he would always place every egg into his absurd basket and never let anyone else have time to think of or try something else. Very commanding and outspoken kind of guy who really overshadowed the newer players at the table with his lapdash to dot conclusions. Under his guidance, the party almost murdered an innocent man, tried to blow up a puzzle instead of solve it because he got frustrated while everyone else was actually playing the game, blew up a hidden treasure room, blew up a bunch of harmless plot, informing corpses which were behind cages that couldn't even be opened because he was sure they'd resurrect somehow in an otherwise empty room. Wasted all of the party's valuable stores of blow-stuff-up powder on the aforementioned endeavors. Now Mike made assumptions following his trains of logic that clearly had no rails. But Barbatua made assumptions based off metagaming and the occasional peek behind the screen. I decided that if anyone was going to enjoy this game, it would be the newbie. Fast forward through the levels, some Mike tantrums, and Andy being the only good player, and basically single-handedly doing all the non-combat work for the party. One instance of this was, they half-searched a room, and then started trying to get through the next door. Cue 1 hour out of game of Mike getting angry at me until a plot. Creature saves the day by suspiciously looking at where the key is hidden in the half-searched room, and Andy decides to search again. Mike continues to make absurd assumptions at every bit of plot, puzzle, or lore I throw at them, and eventually they reach the end of the ruins, and my patience. This was after several weeks in the ruins. And I decided that that would be the day, and the campaign would end. In whatever way I had to wing it, because I'd long since stopped preparing for sessions. They find the man they've been looking for and hearing about all this time, Lord of the Keep, whose actions brought about the fall of his own noble house, all for some unknown purpose. So many people dead, even his own family. For an endgame that no one knew, they stand in a grand chamber. A massive tapestry depicts a strange, foreign world. Other similar tapestries litter the floor, tarnished and thrown aside. A small throne sits solitary before the tapestry, dwarfed by its immensity. In this throne is the lone, desiccated corpse of the Lord, long since dead, and in his hand a strange implement. I'd long since come to realize that Andy was the only one who I could deliver plot to, so why not make it good? I knew Andy would be the one to grab the implement, an oversized, ornate needle resembling a sword. Upon doing so, Andy is transported to another world, the one depicted on the tapestry, and learns the truth of the Lord's endeavors. This world resembles the one they know, but it isn't finished. The needle can sew the thread and see the ambition realized. A better world, a perfect world, because the one they knew was dying. The plot they'd missed out on had still happened.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say because my lip popping.
And what the fuck does Mike do but start complaining? We're level 3. In over our heads, we shouldn't be here. And then he pulls the mother of all bullshits. Mike is a ranger. A level 3 ranger since the start. This whole time he'd been talking vaguely of some trump card, a failsafe or a get-out-of-jail-free card. Color me fucking confused because a level 3 ranger isn't even very good at being a ranger, let alone doing anything else. A friend of mine is sitting in on this last session, not playing, and equally confused. DMs hate it cause there's nothing they can do about it. Mike declares smugly. Plot NPC shows up to explain some things and take the world needle. Mike says, okay, yep, knows the time. Among more complaints about how they have to participate in this pesky world-shaping event. We all look at him expectantly to see what he's finally going to do to engage with the plot. I'm going to pray to my deity, Salni, and ask her to come here. Friend and I share an unsurprised glance as it turns out to be yet another assumption about how things work, and not something he can actually do. I explained to him that a level 3 ranger can't do that, and he rolls insight to see if the stranger is trustworthy. Convenient nat 20, and Andy feels an overwhelming aura of good from the guy, and he gives the plot sword to the plot NPC. And the campaign ends. Bonus round, the animal a diced lover from above joined one of the campaigns I play in, so that's neat. You have no idea how mad I was getting when reading this story. Not just because of the fact I spent 4 hours on that story, but because of the animal lover and Mike. Now I'm even more worried about trying to play the game myself, but I'll get there eventually. Yeah, that's right. I put that on 3 times. What do you all have to say about it? Because if it's something like beating me up, don't worry, I am trained for all sorts of stuff like that.